exciting news for our Airbnb business. We made Superhost this month, which is just awesome. And it means that our business is moving in the right direction. So we started our Airbnb back in December of 2022. It's now April, and we just got the email the other day that we made Superhost. And so we really got the qualification in the first review period that we were eligible. There was a review period December 1st, but we'd only been online for a few days, so that doesn't really count. So this is really, April 1st was really the first opportunity to make Superhost, and we did, so it's awesome. I just thought it might be interesting to go over some of the requirements and then some tips that we've picked up along the way that helped us get to Superhost status right off the bat. So first of all, in case you didn't know, if you've ever used Airbnb as a traveler, you may notice this little icon in some people's profiles. That's the Superhost badge. And that just basically says to people, hey, this is like a top-notch listing. The hosts have amazing hospitality. It's just that little mark of quality for people that if they book with a Superhost, they're gonna have a great experience. So me being oldest child, overachiever type, I'm like, yes, that's the goal. That's what we need to do. We need to be Superhost. There are a couple of benefits you get with Superhost status. So number one, you get the badge on your profile. You also get promoted in emails that Airbnb sends out to people. And then as people are searching for a place to book, they also have the option to filter just by Superhost. So if someone is doing that, you now have the opportunity to show up in those listings, whereas before you wouldn't have. So again, it's added exposure for your listing. I was listening to an episode of Bigger Pockets where they were interviewing Jamie Lane, who is the VP of research at AirDNA. It's episode 712. He said that Superhosts have a 24% higher occupancy rate, which I don't know if that's a little bit of like chicken before the egg, cart before the horse type of deal, because in order to qualify for Superhost, you're doing a lot of things right. You have a great looking listing with great looking photos, you're getting great reviews. And so people are naturally booking your place more anyways, but it's just interesting that there's data to back up that if you're shooting for these metrics, you're going to be getting more bookings than the average Airbnb host. He said that only 15% of listings on Airbnb are Superhosts, which means this is like a really big deal for our business because we're now in the top 15% of hosts by having this badge and having these ratings. So let's talk about the criteria that you need to meet to make Superhost status and then some tips along the way to get there. So first of all, Airbnb does a review of all their hosts every couple of months. There's a review period December 1st, April 1st, which is where we made our status, July 1st. So you don't get Superhost status right when you meet the criteria. You get it when the next review period happens and if all of your metrics are in place. And it's April, we have Superhost status now. But if for some reason our service really starts going downhill, they can take that away in July if all of our ratings fall. So it means that you consistently have to be on your game and continue to give that level of service that got you to Superhost status in the first place. So for the requirements, first of all, they require you to have a minimum of a 4.8 rating. We're currently at a 4.9. And as time goes on, that continues to be easier and easier to maintain because as you get more 5-star reviews, if you happen to get one 4-star review, which it does happen, we have one 4-star review on our profile, it affects that overall score less and less. And keep watching the video because I have a couple of tips on how to make sure that you're getting those 5-star ratings. The second metric that you have to meet is a cancellation under 1%. And this is you not canceling on a guest. It doesn't count if a guest cancels their trip, which has happened to us. That you're not penalized for that. What Airbnb wants to make sure doesn't happen is that you're booking people, they're making vacation arrangements, and then you end up canceling their trip on them and they're left without a place to stay. That's what they want to avoid. This one was not hard for us at all to reach because we have remote check-in. So even if something happened in our personal lives where things were really crazy, it wouldn't be hard for us to still let people stay at the house. I can see how if you're meeting people at the house and having to let them in yourself, that it would be a little bit harder to kind of keep up that zero cancellation rate. But for us, so far, it hasn't been a big issue. Honestly, the only time I could see us canceling is if something really, really bad happened with the house, like all the water was out, or we should just scratch that. I don't even want to tempt fate. Why did I say that? Oh my gosh. We should just like cut that out of the video. Next metric is a 90% response rate when someone is inquiring about your home. Again, this one also wasn't a hard one for us to meet. And if you're treating this like a business, oh my gosh, you're gonna be so amped up when you hear that little bell ding. It would be almost impossible for me to not grab my phone right when I hear that little alert come through, because I'm like, ooh, money, like someone's asking about a booking. It's exciting. So it's really not hard. Don't stress about it. If you've got the app, like I said, it's going to be really easy for you to just respond to a question or respond to an inquiry right away. And your response rate should be 100%. No issues there. The last metric that you need to meet is you need to have 10 completed stays or 100 nights over the last 3 stays. So if you're doing like a midterm or kind of longer term rental, you'd need to have 100 nights. But when you're just doing regular short-term rentals, you need to have 10 stays, which is what we had. We actually ended up having 29 stays in our review period. Let's talk about some tips on how to get you to Superhost status as quickly as possible. When I was thinking about this list, there are things that kind of go without saying, like having a clean property and having the right amenities. I really want to make sure that the info in this video are maybe tips you haven't heard before, and it's advice that we've picked up along the way from our experience. But if you do have questions on cleaning, go ahead and drop it down in the comments down below. I can make another video on that. I also will include my complete shopping list for all the furniture and amenities that we include in our property. And that's just a good checklist to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything. But on top of having really clean listing, really great amenities, beautiful, one of the big things that I think has helped us, and this is a tip that we learned from this book, it's called Optimize Your B&B. I'll link it down below if you want to pick that up off of Amazon. Really great tips in here. And one of the things that the author Daniel said that I think was great was Airbnb and getting those 5-star reviews is all about setting expectations with the guest. And so we pulled this right out of the book, but we have a little welcome note that's in our snack basket right when the guests arrive. And it says, you know, welcome to our home. We're so happy you're here. And then the key line is we set this expectation and we say, this is a 5-star Airbnb. If at any point you feel that it's not, please reach out to us and we will try and rectify the situation as quickly as possible. So I love this strategy because it's setting the expectation with the guest that we want to give them 5-star service. And so if there's something that's not matching up with how they view a 5-star rating, it's giving them full permission to please let us know so that we can do our best to make that better for them. And so far that's been working out really, really well. Great piece of advice I can give you is run to trouble. There are going to be things that happen. You cannot avoid it. This is just the business. It doesn't matter how many procedures you put in place, things are going to break, toilets are going to clog. For us, we had our hot tub break, and that is a really big amenity for our property. But I think for the most part, people are really, really kind on Airbnb. If something comes up and you address it right away, you run to trouble, you address it with urgency, and they see that you're doing everything in your power to make the situation right, they're usually really understanding about that. When we had our hot tub break, we still got a 5-star review because I think the guest was, number one, really understanding. They were really, really awesome. But they also just saw that we were doing everything in our power to make that right as quickly as possible. We didn't sit on the problem. And I think that goes a long way with people. Okay, last little tip. I think that the 10 stays can be a stumbling block for some people, especially like right in the beginning, because you put your listing up and sometimes bookings are a little bit slow to trickle in. So here's what we did to amp up how many bookings we were getting in the very beginning to make sure we met that 10-stay threshold. If you have a house that is catering to bigger parties, so like 6 or more, those groups are booking out 2-3 months in advance. And so when you first put your profile online, you really need to adjust your pricing strategy for smaller groups. Those are the groups that are going to be booking out a few weeks to a month in advance, and that's who you're going to have to cater to. So what I would suggest doing is looking up how much it would cost a group of like 2 to 4 to get a hotel room in your area and base your pricing off of that, because that's really the competition that you're in right when you make your listing. That will allow you to get more bookings. I'm also a big fan of this because when we did that, it just helped us kind of get our feet wet quicker. You're going to improve your hosting skills the more bookings that you have. And so for us, it was just really nice to jump right in there and start getting bookings and kind of work that muscle. So by the time our review period came around in April, it was no problem for us to meet that 10-stay pay threshold. There are so many more tips I could share. Honestly, I could probably talk about this all day long. I really want to keep this video to a reasonable length. So if you have any other questions, please drop them down in the comments. I'll try and answer those in future videos, but I think that's everything. So until the next video, bye guys.